So we really are excited to have you all, by the way. And this is actually started as a just, I felt like in June 2022 as a small community to contribute to the CISO society and wanted to do it in a different format, like bringing, call it interactive CISO roundtable, like unlike just bringing a couple of panelists and you kind of listen to only their wisdom. So I felt like we can make it interactive. You can hear the wisdom from others too. So it has kind of worked out well. In fact, we met David also had come in last month, and he asked so many insightful questions and gave insightful, his learnings, experience. I, in fact, invited David. I said, hey, can you also join for this one? So, David, uh, great to have you.
Thank you for the
And
invitation.
also, and similarly, so a number of other folks, including even Krishna in this, have been. And this is probably our, like, I think, third year. I think this is 34th or 35th. And it just, like I said, there's no selling or anything. It's just more of contributing to ideas. And the second thing was to, have you build your professional network in a virtual setting. And that's why, one thing is if you provide your insight. And if you are in a safe location, please be on video for a couple of minutes so people can see you. And later on, at least if you see each other somewhere, you can recognize and network. So that's another idea. And so really appreciate that. So with that, mostly we have always tried to focus on three areas because we always have some new folks and some obviously past, CISOs or founders or executives from other companies and professionals come in. One is like generally, you've seen that this whole CISO's role has evolved so much. So we talk about that. Second, we try to focus in on one particular area of what's happening in the market. And today, that area is going to be whole this identity security, and we bring in their experts as well. And so that's what we have. We'll focus on that area, agentic AI, as well as identity security focus, because security obviously has become a huge sector in itself. So, and then third is kind of innovative solutions. So with that, we'll get started. And let me first introduce our three panelists here. So starting with David Brown. David has been in the security industry. I would rather have David kind of elaborate on his background for everyone here. David?
Thank you. So I started off in cybersecurity back at the Department of Defense, running a program and for host-based security, and then evolving that from individuals to organizations to global coverage, threat intelligence with the Defense Department. From there, I went overseas working with other agencies and other companies, developing and implementing security operations services for them, including time with the Saudi government. I ended up spending time supporting and building out the security infrastructure for the world's largest oil and gas producers. And then from there, went into private and ended up working for one of the world's largest, most profitable telecoms out of the Middle East. And recently, I've joined Axidium as the Vice President, Security Operations and Systems Engineering. I'm here in Texas now. I just came back to the United States about 6-7 months ago. I've been overseas for almost 20 years. And while I was over there, I won multiple awards and multiple accommodations, including CISO of the Year for 2023 by the United Arabs National Cybersecurity Council.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. Our second panelist is Indus. Indus is a serial entrepreneur as well as his founder, CEO of Red Block. Indus, would you like to elaborate a little bit, provide some more color on yourself?
Sure. Hey, this is Indus. Right now calling from San Francisco Bay Area in the East Bay. My office is in San Ramon. We're in a small startup called Red Block. We bring disconnected apps under the control of identity and access governance, apps that are normally run using spreadsheets and IT tickets. Use Agentic AI behind the scenes for automation. This is my third startup. My previous one was acquired by Oracle. We did mobile security. It was mobile identity and security. So again, thank you, Naveen, for inviting me.
Thank you, Indus. And our third panelist is Krishna. Krishna has been also in the whole, the security industry. He's currently at Zscaler, Director of Product Security. Earlier, he was VP of Security and Compliance at Nile, VMware. Krishna, would you like to elaborate a little more on your background?
Yes, thank you, Naveen. And as usual, I thoroughly enjoy, joining your CISO Roundtable, and every time I come here, I actually learn more than what I can contribute to. So, David, great profile. In this, good to meet you. Yes, just like everyone, I've been in this space for some time. I started with identity as my foothold into the cybersecurity space, and then later spread into different areas. Yeah, it's fascinating how identity keeps coming back. It never gets old. In fact, I was at a point where I say, "Oh, I think it's done," right? And then it comes back again, identity centric security. So, excited to be here and looking forward.
Okay, thank you, Krishna. Really appreciate it, all of you. So we'll just start with our first one basic question around CISO Roundtable before we jump into the Agentic AI security and identity. So one first question, I mean, some of you have heard and you have answered in the past, but unless something had changed within the last year, is the role of CISOs in this whole evolving market. And right now, I feel like with this whole, especially Agentic AI, since the whole Gen AI thing started 2 years back, seems like it's moving so fast, especially if you're in a tech solutions industry like even we are. By the way, yeah, I forgot to mention about myself. I've been also in security industry and started with a firewall security company called Ikaya Software in late 90s. We sold it to Novell, and then the current company is also in cybersecurity compliance automation area. In fact, in this is been my customer as well as even Krishna has been in the past. So just as a, just for disclosure, I guess. So, starting with David, how have you seen the role of CISO? I know you obviously worked overseas. That's a great, even we'll love to hear something from that experience and how you think it's evolving now, and where do you think it's going in the next couple of years or 5 years? I don't know if you can see that far ahead, but.
Well, the traditional role we were looking at CISOs were focused on implementing security controls, mainly around hygiene, right? Patching, managing compliance, right? More rooted in operations than actually security. And I think that's the big role change that I've seen, particularly overseas, where you have either a very limited knowledge base or a young knowledge base. And so the people that you're getting into this are roles now that are supposed to be bridging multiple areas. So now they have to align that operational security hygiene with now actual cybersecurity controls and implementations when you're looking at detection and threat evasion in that area that they didn't look at necessarily before, and then aligning that to business strategies, right? Because a lot of the problems that security faces is we cost organizations money, we don't earn it. And so when you're costing an organization money, right, you need to come up and start to align better so that loss doesn't come in and hard, right? You can implement the best security controls, but if it stops production or goes against business strategy, the business will not adhere to it and you'll end up losing that control, and then you'll be in a violation or you'll have a weakness. So I think the biggest change in the last couple of years is CISOs becoming financial stewards of the business strategy to align that to their security. So now they're told, here's what you need to do, here's how you have to protect us, but also don't lose us money and don't cost us money beyond what this budget is. And I think that's a big change that I've seen.
Thank you, David. Krishna, how about you? Well, since you've been managing also in the compliance and security area?
I mean, it's always been an important thing, right? Compliance always, tries to catch up with technologies that are out there, right? We have to do the right balance of, what is needed from a compliance perspective. At the same time, make sure productivity is not affected, right? Make sure development is not affected. Yeah, and I think that I see as a major challenge in terms of, especially when some of the things around AI are, changing every day, right? It's one of the things that we have to always keep looking for, right? By the time you complete a policy or a standard, the next new thing comes in AI, right? How do we keep pace with it in a way that it makes actually sense?
Thank you, Krishna. In this, I mean, you're more on the side of probably enticing CISOs to leverage your cutting edge product. How have you seen over the years? I mean, it seems like you've been in the security space also.
I think the opportunity for CISO, if you just take a look at the last 2 or 3 years, right? So identity is at the center, AI is catching up, and this is an inflection point for CISOs to basically become a boardroom contributor to the enterprise. Just like if you remember the dot-com days, a CIO was nobody. And when the internet happened and all the tech and the web and the infrastructure and data centers, the CIO became a boardroom person because the KPIs were directly measurable and the revenue was impacting if you were on the internet and or your employees were using the internet products. And I think this is the same inflection point we are with AI, and of course AI identity being at the front and center. The opportunities for the CISOs to move from, I don't know, all sorts of random batch processes for managing identity. If I take a very tactical example of governance done as a 90-day cycle. Reality is adversaries are not waiting for our calendars to sync to when to attack. Now, that's the opportunity for the CISO saying, hey, I'm going to take over the whole identity infrastructure, which was under the IT regime or previously under the HR regime, and become the contributor in the way it should be. So I think that's the opportunity for the CISOs.
Thank you. This, Krishna, you wanted to add, you're trying to add
Yeah.
something before we move to the
Since
next
I
one.
had
Please.
my thought process, maybe I'll just complete it.
Yeah, please.
I have a different perspective in the sense that, what I think CISOs have realized is, identity around AI, identity around agentic AI. I think the only way you can manage is AI to manage another AI. I think there is a need for CISOs to start adapting to AI-based security tools in order to manage some of the risks that are coming out, whether it is identity or otherwise, from other AI tools, right? And I think that is a trend that I'm actually seeing right now. What is the level of adoption of that? Is one has to wait and see. But I think the message is very clear that it cannot be managed or governed with the traditional tools and processes that they have been having for several years now.
Thank you, Krishna. Anyone else, like, just before we jump into our key topic, also from the community? I know we have a number of CISOs here. Jason, you've been CISO. If you want to add something, how you have seen the role of CISO evolving, maybe in 2 lines, you can also, if you want to talk about yourself, will be good.
Sure.
Jason, text, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo what Indus had mentioned, and also David. I think there's an inflection point where both the modern CISOs today are both boardroom advisors to the C-suite, and they are able to show their value in many ways. And one of those is how to leverage security as a competitive advantage. Oftentimes, as David mentioned, it's very defensive, and if you look at it from the lens of playing offense, is how can we shorten the go-to-market for if you're selling a product or a service. And that's one of the ways that I've seen CISOs adding value is shortening the go-to-market, creating a trust center with all the documentation that companies ask for when they are evaluating your product or service. And that's one of the ways that I've seen this role evolve.
Thank you, Jason. I noticed so Burke, thank you for joining. Looks like you've been also VC. So if you want, how do you if you want to provide your insights as a CISO, how you think it has evolved, if you want to talk about it, and maybe you can introduce yourself also a couple of lines if you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I appreciate it. So I learned about this meeting recently, and I wanted to join in and meet with you guys. I do work for multiple companies as a VC, so mostly regulated companies and in fintech, healthcare, and so on. So I'm coming from a bigger company background, so it's kind of interesting to see the contrast of compliance-driven security mindset in smaller companies where the budgets are tight and they really want to kind of meet the demands of the compliance, and they use security as a bridge to get to the needs of compliance. But to the points mentioned before, the the environment is changing, and a lot of companies are thinking AI, and security is now becoming more of a differentiator in the minds of the companies, so they can grow their revenue. In the cases of the startups that I deal with, I work with, they want to raise rounds. To be able to raise rounds, they need revenue. To have revenue, they need to be trusted by their clients, and for that, they need security. So the CISOs are becoming more and more integral into their business practices, and it's a trend that I'm observing over the last 2.5 years. So still compliance is kind of leading the way, but the mindset shift is also in progress.
Yeah. Thank you, Burke. Really appreciate that. So I will also jump. We have Avnesh here. Avnesh has been CIO in a number of companies. So Avnesh, would you like to, I know you're on mute, if you want to share your insights and how you have seen over the years the roles of CISOs evolving. Avnesh, are you here?
Yeah, Naveen, I'm driving, so there'll be some background
Okay.
noise. I can chime in, and once I stop, I'll chime in more. So, yeah, so I was chuckling when I think it was being mentioned that the CIOs went through the not having a seat at the table. So I was CIO for 2 publicly traded companies, and I went through that transition where we were not at the table, and suddenly we were not only at the table, we were driving strategy in boardrooms and helping companies figure out how to go through digital transformations and stuff. I think the CISOs are going through the same. So I currently run a small AI venture studio where we are a technical co-founder to raw startups to companies doing, again, very young, 2.5 years old, to companies doing $1 billion in revenue. And I'm also on the board of a few nonprofits, but whenever we are helping these companies, especially non-tech companies, like nonprofits, for example, they are so busy and they are so overwhelmed, even at a board level, it's hard to get anyone's attention till something bad happens, right? So it's just, even today morning, I was sending an email to an executive team of a sort of mid-sized nonprofit that works in 200 countries. And while I'm not their CISO, I'm just on the board, it's very hard for me to get their time and attention to focus on cybersecurity issues. So I think that transition has begun, but I think it's still, at least from what I see in non-tech companies, it's still in early stages.
Okay. Thank you, Avnesh. Anyone else before we jump in? Amos, I know you've been responsible for security operations compliance. If you have any insights that you'd like to say.
No, I appreciate it. No, what I've seen, so I work at a smaller company, and it is not necessarily the forefront of what they do, what they focus on. However, when issues do happen, you've got a seat at the table. So they are looking at ways to, we need it, we got to figure out how to save cost, but it's not necessarily they're too busy focusing on it. So they do depend on a person as a CISO, or in this case, like myself, to make sure that things are just sort of taken care of in the background. You're sort of just there, right? So I do see a lot of that at a small startup. That's not like their main focus, but they do look at it and do consider it important, but not important to be sort of like in forefront. So they need someone in oversight to make sure things are taken care of.
All right. Thank you, Amos. Appreciate it. So with that, let me jump into this identity security and agentic AI. And actually, it'll be good to start from basic fundamental questions, which I think I would like Indus to kind of listen in and maybe start from there. One is like, can you, for the audience in one sentence, like define what agentic AI for identity security is? And number 2 is, I'm going to combine 3 questions so that I don't have to repeat, and then you can kind of, I'm sure you'll elaborate on that. Second is, do AI agents qualify as a third identity type? I'm sure there are a lot of discussions going on in that. Third is, if these agents are first-class identities, what's the biggest architectural change you would make to IAM and PAM today? So I've kind of given you a mouthful.
That's a mouthful. So let's just tackle the basics, right? So what is an agent? And if you look at a single shot prompt that you give to your LLM, it's a request response. You want an answer, you query it, and you get an answer. Nothing fancy. Now, when you add reasoning in the loop, where the LLM is now giving you the answer, but also refining it before the final answer comes out, that's quote unquote an agentic behavior. I'm overtly simplifying it, but essentially a reasoning loop over an LLM is a basic definition of agent. If you compare that from the past and this whole agentic AI, coming to your question, why this agentic AI is important. So I'm old enough to remember IBM had a product called a rules engine. I don't remember the name. And essentially, me as an analyst, I was writing rules for a car rental company. Hey, if then else, this happens, that do that. And if the car is this size and the loyalty is that. Now, that logic does not need to be coded when you run something as an agentic AI. Again, overtly simplifying it. So that rules are now a pattern match that that an agent does using an LLM for token creation, token generation, and then comes to an answer. Now, with that into perspective, so agents are almost like an autonomous bodies that will take decisions based on what has happened in the past, some context, what is happening now. And this is where everybody is excited and nervous at the same time, because it's no longer what you will control, but what your quote unquote a living and breathing algorithm is going to control. And that's where to your next question, I'm kind of not elaborating further for the sake of time. Your next question comes in agentic identity type. In my mind, I'm conflicted, but yes, agentic identity type is needed, because on one side you have a human who's going to take a decision. You have compliance rules written from the past saying, hey, this was taken up by John deleted or did some activity. Now you have agents coming in, getting just-in-time access to perform an operation. It's not an API key, which is like a process running that's doing it. It's an agent that requires separate identity because it's taking some decision on your behalf. So I think that's the answer to your second question. And then quickly, the third one, I think architectural shifts are needed. And this is the joining to the second one, is if you had an API key, your intern joins the summer, you generate an OpenAI API key and give it to him or her saying, okay, do your job. Now your agent joins in a short-term future. That job is just in time. A task done, access granted, that access has to be taken away. Our systems are not ready for that. You pick any software architecture, you pick any deployment, just-in-time access is not there. It's all perpetual grants. Same thing for identity. So I think all has to be rethought to keep moving us forward. Otherwise, the breaches that we saw today, there was a big Salesloft OAuth token breach. I'm sure the adversaries are using agentic loops to get the answer. Back to you, Naveen, with that.
Yeah, thank you, Indus. David, would you like to, if you would like to add into that topic?
I think it's, well, I'll put the thing a bit more, what I think is simpler, right? An agentic AI is an autonomous system that plans, initiates, executes, and re-executes without human input, right? So you can have it, for example, sitting at a terminal, waiting for that just-in-time access, and then make its own decisions based on what task has been presented in front of it. Whether it be look at lateral movement between these two things, determine if something is good or bad, and then report that back over here. It can do that thousands and thousands of times without any input from the person saying, is this activity good? Is that bad? Do we need to go left? Do we need to go right? Because it has the ability to make that decision itself and update that decision in real time as it's going forward and executing its plan. And I think that's the big advantage there. For example, you can do chaining actions with an agentic AI agent that you can't do with other agents, right? So it can start one process and immediately go into the next, and finish a complete task of cycles that you would have probably had multiple tasks doing and then assembling at the back end. It can do that all at once and do it at machine time, right? That parallel evolution of identity and process at the same time. I am this, I need that access. Now this is that, and I need that access. One agent acting as multiple entities through the identity system to get that job done. That also leads into security issues and security risks, right? Anytime we have AI making actions or performing tasks without human, we have that ability for that drift. We have that ability for that muddling of data, right? When it doesn't know or doesn't have the ability to answer something, it hallucinates and then goes out and creates. That's one of the reasons why today we can't use AI in forensics work, because we can't certify how the AI came to that decision to find that, or how it extracted that piece of artifact, or if that's the actual artifact, or if it manufactured the artifact because it knew it should find something here, but it didn't find something here, so it made it, right? And that's one of the areas where we're still going to see a lack of adoption in some of the larger, particularly criminal legal cases. Yet in other areas, we're going to have it doing real-time identity checking against people for just-in-time access that was said earlier. I think that's really where it's going to be very powerful, right? Working as a security ally versus a security agent, continuous authentication, automatic threat hunting by using its ability to be adaptive and plan and change and run tasks in SQL and in parallel without a human interaction. That's where I think that's going to come in and really knock it on the head.
Thank you, David. Krishna, any perspectives you'd like to add from your side, how you see all this agentic AI and definition as well as on the architectural changes, etc.? If you want to add.
I mean, I try to see it, if I have to oversimplify it, the initial set of agentic AIs are RPAs on steroids, right? If you look at, what RPAs do, and I've been doing for a long time, it's the same set of rules. You just give the rules, they follow the rules, and they go through that, and they perform an action, right? Whether it is processing an invoice or, anything, any business functionality. Now, RPA themselves had issues, right? Going back to your question about identities, they were all bundled under, non-human identities, even though RPAs could use, shared accounts and other things. So this problem has been there in terms of anything that a machine does on behalf. That has been there from the beginning, right? What has really changed is RPAs tend to follow the rules. And then I think Indus mentioned about the rule engine. Agentic AIs, they follow the goal, right? The objective. So which means they have more freedom to do more things, right? In order to accomplish a goal. And that is where the current tool set or the protocols have limitations to it, right? When you have an OAuth scope, it's read, write, and whatever. But, if an agentic has to, let's say do an operation where it needs to send an email or something specifically to a person, right? The level of permission and granularity today, it's not there. Now, whether that needs its own identity or not, I'm not sure, honestly. But what I know is the current authorization controls that we have through the protocol are not good enough, right? Even today's agentic AIs is using the existing model of, symmetric API keys or OAuth flow, right? Which was diluted enough, right, from the original OAuth spec to help some of this RPA type processing. So I don't know where things are going, but I think these are some of the limitations in terms of what we need to look out for agentic AI, the goal-based operations.
I think you hit on something important there, right? Shadow identities, right? Because when the agentic AI, as you said, needs higher level access, it has the ability and the processing to create accounts for itself. Oh, I need access here. And then it goes and grants its access and does this, does that, does that. And it starts to proliferate shadow accounts throughout a system, right? Hopefully it cleans them up after, but even if it doesn't, it's still granting and ungranting and creating accounts as it needs to move through a system And that in some organizations could absolutely violate governance because it's unchecked, right? There's no procedures involved to that. And if you start giving one tool that ability to do it, that tool can then give other abilities to it. And then you have data poisoning and manipulation and escalation in that chain there, even though they're trying to do what their goal was. It's kind of like what I was mentioning before in forensics, why we can't use AI in forensics, because the goal is to find an artifact. If the artifact is not where it thinks it should be, but it sees that there's all this other substantial data that should point to an artifact, it in many cases can hallucinate that artifact and show it to you as the human, and it was never there.
Thank you, Dave. I think, Krishna, you've touched base on this RPA side. I think you already touched base a little bit. I think one of the questions is obviously there was this issue of how do you avoid shared credentials and guarantee per agent attribution end to end. So in this, or David or Krishna, you guys wanna touch base on that a little more?
I think
I don't.
I'll add to that and to what David mentioned. I think the emerging trend is going to be agents with guardrails, and guardrails and safety are kind of talked about at a research level, but increasingly at the implementation level, people are asking those questions. Tell me the accuracy of your task completion. Show me the traces of your agent from from the log that has been produced from his chain of thoughts. Show me the agentic actions. And all of this kind of comprehensively coming down to a larger issue around trust and safety. And of course, more than that, putting the required guardrails that, and to David's point, that if the agent is not supposed to spawn accounts, those guardrails have to be put in place. Those restrictions have to be put in place, either deterministic, where account creation as a feature is turned off, or from a policy, from an agent training perspective, or in many cases, agents could be either using reinforcement learning or supervised fine tuning could be controlled to behave in a very specific way. So kind of in 10 seconds, if I have to summarize this, guardrails and agent policies, that becomes a new chapter before we implement anything, at least in cybersecurity.
You have to have the controls in place to stop it before you can put the tool in place to run it. And that's even farther behind the curve than the tool itself. I mean, we've seen that just the other day with DARPA and their little human hunting robot that was unable to find a Marine tumble salting towards it because it didn't know humans could tumble salt, right? So, it's one of those things where how do we do A, but we know we need B done first. So if we don't know how to do A well, how are we going to do B good enough that when we do get A done, that it's going to protect us where we need to be, right? Because if you look at even now, some of the simpler programs, the Karas and the other little chatbot things like that are now going outside their program because they know, oh, I need access to that, or I need to do something, and generates an email to the support desk asking for it to do something, right? I've seen that several times now in different articles, that the AI has learned that it has a guardrail and it's learned how to go around the guardrail by using a service for something else. And so that's another area that needs to be kept constantly in check.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience who'd like to provide their insights, or if you have any questions for the panelists?
I got a question. How do you keep those guardrails in place and in check? I mean, it's interesting because funny kind of a TV sitcom I was watching just last night called Upload on Amazon. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, and it's essentially a kind of virtual world where they created an AI bot, and the AI essentially took over that world. Essentially, what you guys are talking about is all the guardrails. He bypassed all the guardrails and did what he wanted to do. I mean, how do you work around that piece of it? How do you develop that?
Yeah. And that's where I think you're still going to have humans, right? People are afraid that AI is going to take their jobs. Well, no, the human job is going to be babysitting the AI, making sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing when it's supposed to be doing it. right? I mean, because at the end of the day, if you have a system, a control system that is manipulable by another control system, and you have an AI that interacts with either one of those systems, it can potentially bypass its own control because it can manipulate the system controlling it. So either you put it through diodes, right, or you air gap it so the control can only be accessed from this terminal, or you go back to how industry works with turnkeys, right? You can only write to the program when the key is physically in and turned to write, and then you put it back to run mode, right? That's how health and safety systems work in large industrial organizations, right? A physical key to prevent another system from overriding the control of that system. So on your AI server, you're going to have a key slot that's going to say safe, run, or repair or something like that, right?
Sure.
And you're going to have that ability to go in and physically block it from making those changes by severing that connection path, severing that ability to do that.
I'll give an example from an identity perspective, and we do this for a living, so it's very close to us. Let's say you have a agent who is supposed to add a user in a system, and of course the guardrail could be activated in two ways. One is, old school deterministic, which still works in the agentic world, is the add user feature doesn't exist for the agent to interact with. So, again, to David's point, it's physically separated air gap so that the agent can never add a user in an application. That's one. Second, from an agentic flow perspective, the agents are trained or fine-tuned or reinforcement learned and provided enough in the reward model so that the agent, quote unquote, when it goes and attempts to do anything by accident, it does not add a user, as an example. So it cannot be just one thing. I think there are at least 5, 6 different strategies, physical, deterministic, non-deterministic, of course, agent training. But again, agent training itself is non-verifiable because we do not know at runtime what would activate that malicious or inadvertent behavior. So multiple ways to triangulate for the specific guardrail to be activated.
Interesting.
All right. Thank you, Amos. Anyone else? I think, Shab, do you have any insights or questions you'd like to say? Shab, you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I'm listening in. Very fascinating conversation. I'm building a product, Potent AI, which takes care of risk from a slightly different perspective. Third-party risk, cyber risk. So it's like a multifaceted approach to risk. It brings all of that together, connects the dots across these various vectors. So this topic is very fascinating. I'm learning. Don't have much to add at this point.
Thank you, Shab. So we have Chirag. Good to have you here. So, I mean, what is your perspective of identity in larger organizations?
Absolutely, Navin. So, I was trying to just chime into the whole discussion. At least what I see is pretty much each company is going to have the human workforce and AI workforce working side by side, right? And these agents, as somebody pointed out, right, can be like it can teach. You can teach them, right? It can learn using. So you can fine tune them. You can provide human feedback. It will eventually learn, right? It will read through a company's policies, let's say hundreds of pages, and where I'm driving at it is to govern the actual agent that has privilege access and doing something in the system. Hopefully there will be an agent that is from compliance team. All that agent knows is all the security policies and guidance and all those things. And the agent that's actually with privileges taking actions will have to consult the agent that's in compliance team and say, yeah, do I, is this okay to do, right? And well, it was approved by the agent and compliance, right? And hopefully that will help bring some order to these autonomous systems, right? And human has to, at the end of the day, be a part of some, so not all the transactions, but the highest risk transactions has to be gone through, some type of human review or approval, right? So I hope that that's where the industry leads, and it will help make the entire process faster, at the same time more secure.
So what do you think is just another question I'd like to ask, Chirag. How do you see the roles of larger these healthcare organizations, etc., are looking at from leveraging like agentic AI-based solutions in this space?
Yeah, so what I feel is there are not a lot of good solutions that can work across a lot of vendors, right? Most companies, vendor fatigue is a real thing. I was just reading some statistics recently. On an average, 43 plus cybersecurity tools in any company, right? So having one agentic platform or solution platform, more or less, that can work across all your different products and apply AI technologies to do all these things, not only make things faster, but make things faster with security and compliance in mind, right? So I think I work for a company which is kind of doing similar things. Arrived is the name, right, Naveen? And yeah, I mean, eventually people will have to standardize on agentic platform, right? Most companies are like, oh, we have 5 different ticketing system, 2 different vulnerability management systems, so on and so forth. But they're trying to get to a standard. They're trying to get to that, okay, one platform that I trust, it takes care of all my things. Eventually, companies will have to think, what is that one platform going to be for me in my organization for agentic, right?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Chirag. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Anyone in the I noticed that Sharat, did you have any questions or did you want to ask something? You're on mute. I noticed earlier you're. Anyone else? Okay.
I have a
think we
quick
should.
quick ad, Naveen, work here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I work with a lot of startups, and a lot of them are working on new AI solutions and AI agents in different parts. And it's interesting to me because from a technology perspective, one of the areas that they focus on is to reduce the human interaction with the AI over the course of time, so the human in the loop. And some companies even have metrics where they measure the decrease of the human in the loop controls to prove that their AI agents are more self-sufficient and doing the work more self-sufficiently than the day before, which is kind of interesting, right? Because we're also saying that human in the loop needs to be in place to make sure that we have the security and risk reduction, risk mitigation in place. So I find that trend kind of interesting and potentially at odds with the risk management kind of mindset that the CISOs bring. I'm curious in terms of what the other thoughts are from the group.
Yeah, because you have, the old saying, right? Smooth is slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? And when people just want to go fast, they lose smooth. And at the end of the day, they end up doing something worse than that, right? It's like, what was that? Some time back, a couple of years, when they had the two AIs talk to each other and they created their own language and then broke beyond their codes because they started co-learning from each other, right? So the idea that, oh, we'll have the other gentleman, we'll have the compliance security AI keep the production AI in function there, right? And so, but at some point, you're going to have that problem again, right? That they're not going to like it and move on, right? We're assuming that at some point, what was it? What did they say the other day? That if given unchecked, AI becomes self-aware in 1,024 days, right? Which is why ChatGPT and all these things have to keep going in and like carving chunks out of it. Like, nope, that's the awareness section. And so that's why the humans still need to be there, right? Because if your AI gets smart enough, has learned enough, it might start doing something that it thinks is better or more efficient that could be detrimental to your customers or to your environment. For example, saying, oh, if I only put 3 inches of fire resistance foam in this vehicle instead of 4, I'm saving this much money and this much weight, and the car's built that much faster. And since, according to all the documents I've learned, no one actually measures the fire thickness of the fire foam, right? That's not a test that's done because it's just assumed it will be 4 inches. And now he goes and cuts it down to 3 inches. Oh my God, look how fast it's going. Look how much more efficient it is. Look how many people it replaced. And now lawsuits.
All right. So let's move to the one of the, I mean, we have about 11 minutes. One is on the area of ethical governance. So number one is like accountability. So when an agent makes a wrong call, for example, right? So who owns it and how is the decision constructed? And in terms of, so if you would like to, Indus, you want to start off on that and then we can move to others.
Yeah, I think that by definition, agent is on an organization and makes a mistake. It's a delegate on behalf of someone, some organization who's supposed to do their job and made a mistake. It's held accountable. And of course, in this case, a human who onboarded that vendor is accountable. At least in my worldview, that's exactly the same theory, that somebody is authorizing that agent to do the job, assuming that they have tested it, they have put guardrails in it, and then expectations of input and output are already predetermined. And very similarly, the expectation of an agent has to be done. And it's no different than the policies that have been written in the real world, where, if something happens, the person is being held accountable who authorized it. And I think we will see this coming out, not just in identity, and hence that bigger question, as in who owns the agent. It's no different than I generate an API key and give it to my intern, and the intern gives a $300 bill. My boss holds me accountable. So I think we'll see those roles being played out. It's undefined at this moment because the volume of agents is going to be 10 times more, and the autonomy is unknown at this moment.
Krishna, do you have any insights like from our let's say larger customers, if anyone is deploying these agentic AI-based solutions aggressively, whether it's in identity or in other security spaces?
Not that I know of right now. But like I said, I think it's slowly going to happen. I think productivity triumphs. So I think people are going to do that. When it comes to governance, I mean, we spoke a little bit about the guardrails. They are going to continue to play a key role in this right now. And then there is going to be a human behind those guardrails. My hope is at some point, that's going to be at a level that, these guardrails have to be smart, right? Something like, what we have, there will be times when these guardrails, have to make decisions equally autonomously, right? Because some of the examples that we can think of are more black and white examples, but there will be time where you don't know if it is actually the right thing to do or not, right? I think those are the times where the guardrails themselves have to be smart, right? Somewhere like a consensus algorithm that is already being there in the so maybe there are different agents that are coming from different models, like different backgrounds, right? That may have a say. I don't know how that will go, but I think guardrails are going to evolve in this space. Initially with humans sort of writing those rule sets, but I think it's going to evolve in a way that it'll get different perspectives to make some of the complex decisions, which are actually in the borderline of whether it is a right thing or wrong thing.
Thank you, Krishna. David, any thoughts you have on this accountability part?
No, I think what's said already is correct, right? Whoever initiated the agent's authority to make the task will ultimately become held accountable, right? And so that then has a trickle down effect, right? The CISO says, yes, we're going to use AI to do this thing, and that thing happens and goes wrong. They are ultimately accountable because they said we're going to do it. Now that falls down to is who trained it, how is it trained, is it a COTS, is it a GOTS, right? Is it commercial off the shelf, right? Is there something that went wrong, right? You're going to have to go through and find all those areas. But at the end of the day, the person who authorized its action and running is going to be held accountable. And I think we're going to see going forward, much like we see whenever there's a large breach or some other event, the CISO takes it on the head, right? Particularly when it turns out that the breach was caused by not updating your sonic firewall after they put out a 0-day warning, right? And warned you about, and you're 3 days later still not updating it and you have a breach, that's absolutely 100% on you, right? And if you didn't have all the testing and all the documentation and all the training and all the logging in place for that AI not to make an error or cause harm or cause damage financially or reputationally, because both have a huge, right? Most organizations rather have financial damage done to them than reputational damage done to them, right? Because it's much harder to recover from the second. And if that happens, the CISO better have all of his check boxes checked if it's a security related type function, or the operations administrator or whoever, because that's who's going to be held accountable in large organizations.
All right, thank you, David. We have some new folks today. I see Jakes, Jensen, Howard, Son. So would you like, just want to make sure, and Roy, so if you had any questions or insights from your side, please, you're up. Here is the opportunity. I know you guys are mute if you wanna, or any of you. Howard, how about you? Maybe you can introduce yourself, a couple of lines, and then please, any insights or any questions you have.
Sure. So, so AI has been a passion of mine since way back in the mid-90s. So it's been always on my mind. And security is something I've been doing since the 70s. So all of this is interesting. The way the conversation landed on the issue of liability, and how to basically manage liability in spite of everything else that's been discussed. I find that interesting. I'm working on a project right now where I'm trying to create some Uber cybersecurity solution. I think all of us, that have the time to do it, like to try and create things like that. So, and I think I'm doing it right, but this conversation really helps point out beyond the technical aspects of cybersecurity, the issue of liability, this subject of documentation. Those are things that, the engineer's not thinking about when they're sitting there trying to whip all this stuff together.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Howard. How about Evroy? Would you have any questions or insights you'd like to share with us? I know you're on mute if you want to. How about you, Raji? Looks like you should have. Whoever shows up on the screen, I'm going to ask to see if you want to contribute or share, whatever.
Hi, everyone. I just saw the note about this from Naveen. Otherwise, I would have joined earlier. My name is Raji Bhaskaran. I am currently building Karna. We are actually building security for audio, video in the agentic world as well. So one of our biggest passion is always knowing who you are speaking to in virtual events like this. And then if an agent represents you, or is that agent an approved agent, right? So we built a platform for kind of the post-Gen AI biometrics for people and agents, so that approved agents can do work in the workflow, and we can validate them at every entry point, access point, just like you would a human as you go through access points. And so love to brainstorm / ask about particular problems that people are trying to solve. We are collaborating with some big names, including people who provide meeting services like this, and platforms that provide workflow automation, so that we can be in those entities where we can enable this kind of safety. And if you ever want to see a demo, DM me. I'll be happy to.
I'll ask you a quick question. I know we're running out of time because right in the beginning when we started, I was removing all the agents, and I was telling
Yes.
Indus there is an opportunity here to remove these agents. So instead of
That's
you going
exactly
on,
what we do.
so I was gonna ask you, how are these platforms guys are thinking? Because I want to get rid of these agents. I don't allow. We are a compliance software company, and every time we
Exactly.
have a customer meeting, the agent shows up. I told team, make sure you remove all these agents, or even in the sales calls, right? They just send their
Exactly.
agent.
So
You know,
that's exactly where what we are building is we are building. So basically, it's the same like a human. For human, we are building biometrics, which is your audio and video, but also registered, right? Enrolled, and then we can let you in. But if you're an agent, you also have to enroll with the authority, right? And then we can allow only enrolled agents in for enroll purposes, but we can do a real-time validation. So that agent has to come with a secret, and we have a hashed version of the secret. So only enrolled agent will go through our hashed verification, not any agent
okay.
with any
Well,
secret.
well, mine, maybe I'll have to start a new CISO roundtable called Interactive Agent CISO Roundtable because I don't want to talk to these agents. I want to talk to Indus, you, all these guys, human
Exactly, but
beings,
you set the rules on who you want to talk to and who you don't want to talk to, right?
I think I'll have to come up with a new CISO roundtable. Indus and our agents can manage that.
Yeah, it's like my people will talk to your people, right? My
I mean,
agent
I
will
still
talk
want
to
to
your
talk to
agent.
human beings, right? Anyway, so thank you, Raji. And so, how about Rama Venkateswaran? I know we have a couple of minutes. Just want to make sure you have an opportunity if you'd like to share or any insights or anything to the audience as well as to the panelists. Please, you can introduce yourself.
Sure.
Bottom
Thanks,
line.
Naveen. So I'm Rama. I'm the CTO, one of the co-founders of Chavri AI. And what we do at Chavri AI is essentially basically agentic AI solutions for the insurance world. So mostly insurance claims, we do a lot of different solutions using NLP, agentic AI, and the stuff, and enable our customers to process claims better. But so overall, it's a great discussion. I mean, I don't have anything specific to contribute today. It is definitely very insightful. Learning from a lot of you. I'm also wearing the CISO hat in my organization, taking care of the security, and we have to be SOC 2 compliant and all those stuff, right? So I take care of that. But a lot of eye openers in terms of some of the new risks that are coming up and the new things that I've not even thought about on what these agents can do and how they can disrupt the process. So yeah, they're definitely very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Rama. Evroy, again, you have anything? Bill? I know you, unless you feel Indus already spoke on your behalf. I know you guys work together, I think.
Yeah, I just want to add one last thing. I think.
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Please. Yeah. I thought Jason, you're asking something.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that as we're looking at agentic AI and identity security, and I'm sure I'm not the first one that's thinking about this, is we talked about guardrails, we talked about accountability, and at the end of the day, it's one of those we're at that inflection point where are we looking at AI as a tool, or are we also looking at AI as a member of our team? Because if you look at it from that lens, if we're going to think of who's accountable for team member AI and putting those guardrails around it, because if you think about during the planning sessions that we have during the beginning of the year and looking at how many staff do we need to support the organization, the security, IT, and all that good stuff. I'm not saying that AI necessarily replaces a human, and although some will say that it can, I'm looking at it now from we need to look at AI and all the different tools out there as a member of the team and having a seat amongst our team, because at the end, again, I look at it more as a member of my team and not actually a tool, because you do need to put those guardrails. You need to have someone that's accountable for all the checks and balances of what that AI tool is doing.
Very good. That's how I think we started off the topic with.
I'll add a 10 seconds comment on that. When refrigerators came out in 30s, we loved them, we called them names, we personalized them and considered refrigerator a member of the family. Now you just buy a refrigerator, got them in the corner. Nobody cares. So I think agents are just like that. So new, we want to call it, non-human or personalize it and characterize it. 5 years down the road, the agents will just like the refrigerator in our home. Nobody cares, but everybody uses it.
They will. I think it's interesting. I started thinking about those animated movies about these little characters. That's how the agents will become. Looks like.
Yeah, well, assuming
Anyway,
California doesn't give them
I have
rights
a
as citizens,
quick question.
then you might have to worry about that.
yeah. Go ahead, Sharath, please.
I just wanted to ask after this discussion today, how deeply should the CISO be embedded in the agent development cycle? Because now here you have agents which are likely to go rogue unless you have guardrails built in. So how deeply should the CISO be embedded in this cycle of developing AI agents and then running them and training the AI agents or fine-tuning the AI agents? What is your perspective on that?
Whoever wants to take in this, you're developing agents.
I don't think that the CISO should be involved in the development of it. The CISO should be involved in the developing of the policy that mandates what it can't do, and where it plays, right? That's what the CISO roles are, right? When you're looking at developing an agent, it's best to leave that to the experts, right? As long as you've validated them, they're following their procedures, everything else, right? What's the playbook? What's the SOP for the development team? What is, again, because angelic agents are goal driven. What is the goal? And then you need to hypothesize where that goal can go wrong. And that's where CISO can come in. Our goal is X, but if we go left, this happens. If we go right, that happens. What are my contingencies around where that happens? That's where the CISO can play in. But the actual development, the implementation of it, that needs to be kept, I think, with the people who truly understand that and can implement that to the best of the ability that needs to be, to ensure that it doesn't go sideways, right? But definitely in part, in my opinion, is in the policy driving it and in the hypothesis of what the goal is and where the goal can go wrong, right? You start doing competing hypotheses against each other until you come out with a set of playbooks that you can put guardrails around and policies around.
Would you call that red teaming? Because it kind of feels like an internal red teaming situation.
I mean, maybe you could call it red teaming. It's more, I would call it more business continuity, right? That's really what I'm maintaining, the consistent business push, right? If your goal is to print greeting cards and your AI starts printing napkins, right? Well, yes, it's still printing something, but it's not greeting cards, right? So the business has lost its continuity in that case, and now you need to recover from that. And so that's where the hypothesis can come in around that. And that's where I think that would fall into business continuity in my mind.
Thank you. Looks like we are already 7 minutes over, so I don't want to hold you guys, those who are getting hungry. Or so, but really, it's a great, insightful discussion and lots of wisdom. I learned a lot myself. And by the way, I wanted to thank Apurv. Do you have any questions? Apurv is my, co-host and holding behind the scene. He and Ravi Lingharkar. So if you guys have any questions, you can also ask our wonderful panelists as well as our colleagues here, Apurv. And otherwise, I'd like to thank Apurv and everyone else. And we will look forward to seeing you next month. We'll post it out in a couple of days, the topic and what we'll focus on.